podcast on three, all right? 1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome to Happy Pace, the only podcast that I know of that is recorded while running. My name is Elaine Sims. My co-host Gretchen Brune will be joining us later on, along with two-time Paralympic medalist Brian Siemann. Brian Siemann is a T53 Wheelchair Athlete who just received the bronze medal in not one but two events, the 800 and the 400 at the Paris Paralympics. For long-time listeners, you know, a few weeks ago, we did an episode called the Paralympics Prep, and we are really excited. Since we recorded virtually, I decided to take you all on one of my very famous night runs for the intro. And the lighting is just as inconsistent as I kind of thought it would be. I'm on the mud. So trying to kind of combat that, but I kind of look spooky with my light. I'll try to get back into the street and also not get run over at the same time while recording. Gentle reminder for our social media handle, it's at happy_pace_podcast. You'll find us on Instagram and TikTok. If you like this episode and want to hear more, make sure that you subscribe. Now join us as we learn how Brian Siemann has found his happy pace. At Happy Pace.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian Siemann. I am a wheelchair racer for the U.S. Paralympic track and field team. I am a 4-time Paralympian and now 2-time Paralympic medalist.
Woo!
Yay!
Congratulations. We're so
Thank you.
excited for that. I know Gretchen and I have been watching a lot of Paralympics, especially on the NBC Peacock app. Was really awesome to be able to watch that this year.
So it was awesome. They had a lot of coverage, which was incredible.
Yeah. So I want to talk about first, actually, that marathon experience. How was going on that cobblestone?
Yeah, so doing the Paralympic marathon is always something I like to do because it's the last event, and I am a sprinter by nature. Like those are my better events, but I do marathons as well. I enjoy the challenge of them. And yeah, so it was my last event. It's the last event of the games, and it was probably one of the most technical marathon courses that I've ever done. In between the first 2K of the race was in a park, and it was basically like you did a 2K loop in a circle, but it was the opposite way that our chair compensators are set. So you kind of had to reverse engineer your chair compensator so you don't have to steer as much. And so someone in my classification that's a T53, things like that are hard enough anyway, just that chair control and turning and things like that. So that already was very hard. And then once you get out of the park, it was a lot of narrow roads, tight turns. There was a section that was on a sidewalk, like a large sidewalk. And then the last, I'll say 5K, 5 or 6K was all cobblestones. So it was a very bumpy and painful remaining 5K of the race.
Yeah, I don't envy that. I just know even like on a bike, I don't want to be riding on cobblestones.
No, and you know, my coach had told me this, and I don't know if it was just me choosing not to hear what he was actually saying. You know, we got a course preview, we saw a video and everything, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I got to that section and all of a sudden it dawned on me. I was like, oh, that's what everyone was saying was going to be so hard. And it really was. It was miserable. And not only was it the cobblestones that was hard, you actually started, it was a climb. You were climbing up and then you had to kind of turn back around and then go down the cobblestones. So that was almost even worse because then it's just like constant rattling. I felt like I described it as if someone was like punching my kidneys. It was just like, like punch after punch after punch. So it was, I had never been so happy to finish a marathon. I think that was, you know, as the last event anyway, you're excited to finish, but I was very glad to just be done with it.
Yeah, that sounds brutal.
Yeah.
So,
Note to future race organizers: please don't use cobblestones.
so did then? It sounds like you didn't really change your training to get used to any sort of cobblestones in advance.
No, shockingly enough, in the Midwest, we don't have a lot of cobblestone roads out in the cornfields. So, so there was very little, uh, course specific type training that we could do here.
Yeah. So with that U of I program that's up in Champaign, I mean, it seems pretty awesome and pretty well developed, probably the most well developed para-athlete track and field program that I've heard of in the US. So with that, like going back to kind of just the idea of training, I think I watched another interview with you where you were talking about how you typically do your track training in the mornings and then road training at night. So with those 2-a-days, basically, how do you change your, like, when you go out onto the road at night, one, do you have to wear like extra things to just try to make yourself visible to the cars and everything? Like, you're out in those country roads as, someone who runs and, someone who is afraid of biking, because I know so many people who have gotten hurt. Like, how do you train with that experience out there?
I think the roads are, they can always be scary for anyone of any ability, no matter, you can have as much reflective gear on too, and then there can still be accidents. And so we tend to, we never go out alone. That's sort of one of our main rules. And so we're always in a large group, or at least a cluster of athletes who have, we're all pushing at a similar speed. There's a group of us, we will attach, a 6-foot flag on the back of our chair too, because we're lower to the ground than a lot of other, even runners or cyclists. And so it makes us a little bit more visible. And then some of us we put lights on the front and backs of our chairs as well, just to have that extra visibility. We try to never go more than 2 wide. Typically we'll try and stay single file. And then if we're like drafting and we're trying we're going to trade poles and things, we'll do a quick look, make sure it's clear. And so that's kept us relatively safe. We've had one of my teammates, Susanna Scaroni, was actually hit by a car several years ago. And she was very lucky. She had some pretty significant injuries, but she came back. She's healthy now. She won a gold medal. She won multiple medals in Paris. So she was very, very lucky, but it is something that we're always cognizant of. But we do try to never go out alone, and we try to have as much visibility, whether that's our flags as well as lights, to kind of make sure that we're seen to keep us safe.
That's awesome. Gretchen, what do you have in terms of questions about his training and everything?
I mean, I'm definitely more interested about like how you got started, but I think really kind of tie into how you got started. But I guess like when you were growing up in high school, like how does that compare to say like high schoolers now? Because I feel like probably in that amount of time, we've probably come pretty far.
I'd like to hope that we had made more progress in the, oh my gosh, 20 years now since I started wheelchair racing, which is making me feel old. But yeah, it's been 20 years actually since I started racing in high school. And for those that don't know, my experience is pretty atypical in that my high school recruited me to join their track, cross country and track team. I mean, I didn't do cross country races, but I just trained with that team. Okay. And so my high school coach had asked if I had a disability, if I could walk, or if I just had like a broken leg on my first day of high school, which was a really kind of shocking question. It wasn't something I'd ever really thought of. But when I told him I couldn't walk, he said, "Oh yeah, okay, well, why don't you come out for the track team?" Which was definitely not in the list of things I ever thought would happen. And so I told him I can't walk, and he said, "Oh yeah, I know. I've seen other kids in wheelchairs compete at our state meet, and it's something that, if I've never coached a kid in a wheelchair before, if you want to give it a try, we can see what we can do. So my high school raised money for my first racing chair, which is typically about $5,000. And then as soon as, and they not only got me a racing chair, they found a juniors team in northern New Jersey, which is where I grew up, and to kind of teach me the technical elements of wheelchair racing and it was also where I got to meet other kids with disabilities. That was the first time I'd ever interacted with other kids who had disabilities. And so that's kind of how I got started, but that really isn't the case for so many kids. And looking back, or now looking forward to see sort of, there are still kids in states across the country that are fighting just to be able to work out with their high school team. That schools or athletic departments will cite misguided and misinformed, like they'll use safety as sort of this catch-all. It's not safe. And so I'd like to think that more progress was made, that any kid who has a disability that wants to participate in a sport would be able to. And especially when there are opportunities that exist. The Paralympics show that there are ways to adapt sports. There are ways that you can have other kids participate. It doesn't necessarily, for wheelchair basketball, for instance, you can't necessarily have someone in a wheelchair, playing with the ambulatory athletes, but there's still opportunities for them to be able to participate, work out, train with those teammates as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're still fighting that. And I think that one of the things that as I've gotten older and more involved in the sport, and as I'm looking towards my exit eventually, sort of what I want to do after sport, and it's to try to make that to make opportunities for kids more possible, because there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. I mean, I assume there was still a lot of work to be done. So I love that, you're already looking post athletic career of what you can do to improve that.
I have like a kind of more philosophical question, I guess, then. And just, I feel like like really just wheelchair and a lot of para athletics are almost inherently, there's a financial barrier to entry in most of them. How can we as a society work to try to take that away from it so that people of every socioeconomic status can participate?
That's honestly one of the price to get involved in adapted athletics is astronomical. And especially because it's not as simple as, you go to the sports store and just pick up a pair of running shoes, and which those are also expensive too, but they're not thousands of dollars. And so, in order for the listener to understand, so in order for someone to be good at wheelchair racing, you need to be in a completely custom fit aluminum or carbon fiber, but that's elite level, but aluminum frame. There really isn't much room for, you don't want the chair to be too big, because if there's a lot of space, you're not going to be able to hit the hand-ring as effectively as possible. But a lot of times, in order to accommodate for a kid going through puberty, they're going to grow. And so a lot of times, parents or schools or whoever is helping fund the racing chair will basically size it up so that the kid can grow into it. The problem with that is they don't excel as quickly as they'd like because they're in a chair that doesn't fit them, which then also causes them to be like, well, I don't like this. I'm not going fast. When you're a kid, you just want to go fast. And if you're not doing that, you're going to try and find something else that you can do, or just do something else and, just walk away from sports, theoretically speaking. So I think there's that as an issue, and then the cost. And so there are several nonprofit organizations that provide scholarships and funding opportunities for kids with disabilities to apply to, that they have equipment grants and then they partner with the like racing chair manufacturers or other sports equipment manufacturers to provide discounts, or even can sometimes potentially cover the entire cost of the equipment. These are limited in the sense that if you get one of these grants, you typically can only get one every 5 years or so. And so again, then you run into that problem again where you want to get something that's going to be big enough that you can use it for those years until you can apply again. There are programs throughout the country, mostly on the coasts. The Midwest has a couple programs in the Chicagoland area that gets a lot of people, but outside of the coasts and then the one program in Chicago, GLASA, there isn't much in terms of opportunities that for kids to be able to work with programs where that will donate old chairs. I've donated a lot of my old chairs to my old program or to other athletes as well, just because I'm not using them anymore. So they're older, but they might fit them. And so there is a lot of there is a sense of community, and we within the athletic world where we want to give other kids the same opportunities we had. And so it's not great, and there needs to be more work. I don't know if there's really a solution, because I think there's still a lack of awareness about adapted athletics in general, so that getting a community rally effort is hard, because people don't even know much about all of the sports and opportunities that exist, let alone how expensive they are. And so it's something that definitely should be addressed, because I think every kid should have the opportunity to participate in sport, whether if that's something you think you want to do as like a professional athlete like I am now, or if it's just something you want to do to stay active. There are so many difficulties that come just by nature of having a disability, that being afforded the opportunity to be active is so essential, and can really prevent a lot of injuries later on in life, things like that. And so you should be able to just have access to sports equipment so that you can be fit and enjoy the positive benefits of working out that all of us, like to do on a daily basis.
And then yeah. So along those lines, I mean, not only do you need the money, but you need like the I mean, it takes a village to raise anyone, but you just need the people to be able to get you to whatever practices and stuff. And so how was growing up with your family? Because I know you have a pretty interesting family, at least makeup, from just reading about it.
Yeah, so I'm a quadruplet for anyone that hasn't Googled me or whatever. So that means it was me, and then my three sisters were all born a minute apart from each other. And I also have an older brother as well. And so he played hockey. Two of my sisters played field hockey in high school. And then my other sister also did field. She threw, I'm going to say shot put, but if she listens to this and I got that wrong, I'm sorry, Jessica. But yeah, so obviously there were lots of us, and getting around was challenging. And I think because I started in high school, that I had the opportunity to spend a lot of my time training with my high school team. That was never an issue. But when I had to go to the juniors team that kind of taught me the specifics about it, that was about an hour and 20 minutes away from my house. And, every Thursday, my mom would drive me up because I didn't have my license at the time. And I became the priority, because that was such a unique opportunity that they wanted to help me have the opportunity to do. And I think my sisters and my brother understood, as we got older, my sisters they got jobs and they shared a car. So then they were able to do that. And so it made things a little bit easier where my mom could do that. But, that's also just a time commitment. It's every week, it's 80 minutes there, then a practice, and then 80 minutes home. And that's hard. And, I was sleeping. I'd go to sleep after. I'd be exhausted from my track workout. My mom would have to, she just worked all day and then had to drive me and then drive me back home. And so it was something that, we managed to make it work. I think just through a lot of my family made a lot of sacrifices because it was something that I was excelling at, and it was something that it was the first time I ever did sports really. And so I think that they saw that it was a really cool opportunity, and they wanted me to be able to have the same sort of experiences that they did. And so my whole experience is so atypical, and I'm so blessed and fortunate that all of these things kind of happened the way that they did, because otherwise I don't think I'd be here. So.
So where are you now then? As you say, I don't think I'd be here.
I don't think I'd be here. Well, one, I wouldn't be in Champaign, Illinois. That's for certain. Because I came to the University of Illinois as a student for wheelchair racing, and to get a degree too. But student athlete. But it was, the focus really was to try to make a Paralympic team. And I don't think that if all of those sacrifices hadn't been made, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be in Champaign. I also wouldn't have then known that I had the support that I had throughout the past, 12 years that I've been racing at this professional level to continue on, because, I've had to miss a lot of things in terms of events or cut things short. It's, for the holidays, it's like, I can only be home for a short period of time, and then I got to come back to get training again. And so I've had such understanding from my friends and my family with sort of this entire lifestyle that's been really helpful, because there definitely are times where you see everyone else kind of living their life and doing these things, and you wonder, it's like, well, what am I doing? I'm here and I'm trying for this one goal. And when you know that, when you get these messages from your family and your friends supporting you, encouraging you, it just gives you that extra motivation to sort of know, okay, this is okay. This is hard sometimes, but I have their support, and this is, all the motivation to keep going.
So I'm curious, can you tell us a little more about, really the transition from a collegiate athlete to then a professional athlete?
Yeah. What's interesting about the University of Illinois program is that as a student, you are training alongside some of the best wheelchair racers in the world that are professionals. And so you're thrust into this experience where you have to, I don't say you view yourself as a professional too, because you have to act that way. I never wanted to be viewed as this, annoying college kid by my idols in the sport. And so I grew up pretty quickly because I was that annoying person that was obsessed with, Josh George, who was another American wheelchair racer at the time. And some of my other teammates now, you grow up very quickly, and you learn how to carry yourself as a professional, because you're not only representing the university, but you're also representing yourself too. And then, you have these aspirations and these goals as well. And so there isn't, in terms of the training, our coach, Adam Blakeney, who trains, he's the coach for the collegiate athletes, but then we all have him as our coach as well. He doesn't differentiate the training. He is there as, the guide and the model for all of our workouts and all of our sessions. And so as you kind of continue, to get more comfortable in that intense training environment, he might increase sort of your volume or the intensity of your efforts, things like that. But yeah, there is really no major separation, I think, outside of that mental desire to make that jump. I think there are some athletes who train at the U of I that are there as collegiate student athletes, and they want that whole experience, but they're fine with just that. And they don't want to say they don't have aspirations to make a Paralympic team, but they're like, I'm going to do something else after I'm done college. I'm going to be, an art teacher. I'm going to, go work in business or finance. And we're here for that. But then there are those of us that say, I want to make a Paralympic team. I want to become a Paralympic medalist, whatever that goal is. I want to break a world record, all of these things. And the environment is there for that too. And there's really, the training is set up where anyone's goals are being sort of reviewed by our coach, and we're all helping each other achieve those goals in that same sort of training environment. We're all helping each other, whatever that is, because I think that's, we're all there to just try and make everyone a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So as you transitioned from, or as you made the Paralympics team, what was basically, I know you've talked about this before a little bit about how, going from just a regular track meet versus a Paralympics event, just the crowd and everything. What's the difference between those two types of events?
I think it's definitely terrifying the first time you're in a very large stadium with thousands of people, because it's something that is so surreal that you can't believe it's actually happening. You compete at these local meets or even the major marathons and stuff, and there are people out on the course, but you push by them, it's a smaller track meet and it's kind of done. And to be quite honest, a lot of Paralympic sports have woefully low attendance rates, so you kind of you're used to not having people there. And so for instance, in Tokyo, when there were no fans allowed at the games, that I was like, well, this isn't weird for me because this is kind of normal. And so it really wasn't I was like, all right, no one's here. What else is new? But when you have 60, 70,000 people in the stands, it can be a lot. I remember, just thinking back, I guess looking back to London, my first games, the stadium was full, and that was, I was 22, I think 22-ish at the time. And yeah, as a 22-year-old, that is a lot of people watching you race. And when you don't have the sort of mental fortitude that I do now, you sort of think all of those people are watching you and criticizing you, and they're going to watch you mess up and all of these things. And so after that experience, I kind of had to do a lot of work just to sort of mentally toughen myself up for larger scale competitions and things like that. But now, it's very cool to see. I think coming out into the stadium for the first time in Paris, we knew that there were going to be crowds, and to see the excitement and just the overall enthusiasm for Paralympic sport was really cool. It was really more just that. I was like, this is awesome. This is a really cool opportunity. And I'm glad that I get to be a part of this and to kind of showcase my abilities to try and make it so that more people are interested, and that this isn't something that, people have to ever wonder, oh, what's going on at the stadium this week? They're going because they're excited to go. And yeah, it was really cool. I had a French athlete in two of my races, and I've raced with him for years, but to hear the stadium just erupt in this thunderous applause for him when he was on the line. And even in the 800, we're coming around the corner, the first 200, and there's this entire section of French fans, and they just were hollering. It took me back a little bit, because I was like, this is a lot, and I had to refocus on the race because they were so loud. And so
wow.
It was really cool.
You.
Yes, it was a brief moment of distraction, but it was really cool.
Your coach, how did your coach feel about that?
I think because I got a medal, he was fine. It was a brief moment, but I didn't let it get to me at the end. But yeah, I refocused quickly, but it was a lot. So it was really cool. It's exciting to be a part of. And now that I'm old, I have the sort of the mental toughness that when it comes down to it at the start line, I kind of can block everything out. I don't focus on the people in the stands. I'm just looking at my lane and thinking through my race and the strategy that I kind of came up with that I want to do.
Cool. Well, I have a very simple question. What's your favorite distance to race?
You say it's simple, but oh my
I
gosh,
know,
now I
maybe
feel like I'm gonna say, you know what, I will say the 800. I think it's a toss up between the 8 and the 4, and obviously those are the events I medaled in, so slightly biased, but I think I'd like the 800 more because there are tactics involved and there's strategy and you can do things a little bit. It's not a long race, obviously, but you have that opportunity to play games a little bit with some of your competitors and see how the race plays out. I do like the 400 a lot because I think even though you are racing against 9 other men, it's essentially there's nothing you can do. You just go hard and whoever is fastest, the top 3 are the fastest that day. And so I like that. I think that's cool. But I think in terms of my own, just personal preference, I like the strategy and the tactics in a race. And so I'd go with the 800.
I have another simple question. What is your favorite road race you've ever participated in that is open to the, well, quote unquote public? I mean, the world majors are really difficult to get into, but still, what's your favorite race?
Oh, that's a good question. I really like the Peachtree 10K in Atlanta. I think that it's a fun race to do. They bring in some of the best wheelchair racers in the world. And so I like that. I like that distance too. It's a nice race. It's a good distance. I think if I had to pick a marathon, if we're going to pick longer distance races, I think my favorite marathon is New York City. Don't hate me, all the other race directors for the other majors. I love your race too. But I love New York. New York's home for me. I joke that I get to eat pizza and bagels that whole weekend that I'm there. So I love that. The course is incredibly challenging. So when you finish it, your body is just done. And then you can eat pizza and bagels after and not feel bad about it. So
I love pizza and bagels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips or tricks for me? I've got Chicago coming up.
Love Chicago. I'll be there as well. I'll be doing
it.
The weather can be fickle. It can be really cold or it's going to be really it can be warm. So just be prepared for both. And yeah, it's flat. It's the Midwest. We got no hills here in Illinois. So it's a good one though. I like that. Just be prepared for the weather. The weather can be, I always bring multiple sets of clothing because I never know. You can look a couple days before and it's like, oh, it's going to be 60 degrees. And then suddenly it's not, and it's cold. So,
and it's hailing.
Yeah. And it's hailing. So yeah.
What do you all do it when it's hailing actually as wheelchair racers?
A lot of us train we'll have different gloves that we'll use. That we all have kind of different methods of what we prefer to use. I will use a sandpaper on my gloves. I have a separate pair of what I call rain gloves, and we'll just use that in adverse inclement weather. Some people will use a tacky hard substance called clister that they put on their hand rings and their gloves that gives them contact. Other people use suede. It kind of everyone has their own preference for what they do, but we usually all have a different set of gloves that we use in inclement weather. But my general preference is if it's hailing, I'm just gonna not do it. The rain was bad and the rain's bad enough, but when we get to hail, no thank you.
So when you talk about the gloves, those 3D printed gloves that you all use?
Yeah, so we've now started 3D printing. I shouldn't say now, it's been several years that we've been 3D printing gloves, but we used to actually have to make them by hand with a moldable plastic called aquaplast. You would melt it and then you would shape it around your hand. So it was very time consuming. And the problem is that one, they could melt. So one of my teammates once left his gloves in his car and they just melted.
Oh, no.
And then the problem is the gloves that we use have a groove in them, and they're pretty specific to you and how your stroke style. And so it's really hard if you were doing something like that to replicate it. You could almost never get it exactly the same. And so whenever you had to remake your gloves, it would almost be like starting from scratch again and having to relearn how to push a little bit, because you'd hit the ring just a little bit different than what you were used to. And so it was never great. So 3D printing kind of changed the game, because you could just scan the gloves that you've always been using and just keep printing them. And so it's really nice now for, rain gloves or regular gloves, or even just having a spare set of gloves. It's the same glove. You just have different surface points on it, which is nice.
So I'm a dog person, and I know you are as well. So I just want to know, like, something dog related. Trying to think of a question.
I'll tell you, my dog Ace is with my sister. So if you want to know what Paralympians do with their dogs when they have to be away for 3 weeks, you beg family members to watch your dog. So my dog Ace has been with her for the past, I guess, almost month now. So she took him about a week before I left. I know I miss him so much. I'm getting him back, I think, this week. But since I was gone, and then just arranging the pickup time. But yeah, you usually find a family member to watch your animal. But I will say that if you ever want to go into like, elite sports and, Paralympic or Olympic sports, maybe don't get an animal, because you do travel a lot, and it also can be very expensive to board your dog as well, which I can attest to. So, but yeah, kudos and shout out to my sister Maria for watching Ace, because he's living his best life. I don't think he actually wants to come home. I think he's having so much fun there.
So we're actually getting ready to go on a trip, and my father-in-law just picked my dog up today to take them. They live at Lake of the Ozarks, and I always feel the same way. Like, he doesn't actually want to come home. He's having more fun there. So can relate. Yeah,
I know. I do. It's yeah, you miss them. My house feels very empty without him. So can't wait to get him back.
Yeah, I've got my 2 cats, but on Sunday I'm actually running the Dogtown Doggy Dash. So I get to run with dogs that are nearby. So I'm really excited.
Love that.
I love dogs.
There are some fast dogs in St. Louis too.
Are they like on a leash, or do they like, what are they like? You have to run with your, I'm assuming they have to be on a leash.
Yeah. Human leash.
Typically.
Dogs.
Yeah, we've got a couple big dog related races in St. Louis actually that have really started to take hold of the running community. It's the Dogtown Doggy Dash and the Macklin Dog Mile. So if you ever want to come down to St. Louis, if Ace wants to race, I'm sure that would be amazing.
Oh my God.
Could you ever?
No, he would never. He really? Is the lazy. Okay. Oh my God. He's a husky hound. So you would think that he would love that, but he doesn't. He is the laziest dog. He spends most of the day just lounging in the sun. Like, yeah, my other dog that unfortunately passed away last year, he had a treadmill. He had so much energy that we got him a treadmill so that he could run. And I would just have to say, Gambit, go up and run. And like, he would just start running away. Like,
did he have to press the buttons?
I would turn it on for him, but he would then just hop off, get water, and then hop back on.
Wow.
Yeah, as long as he could see me. So I set it up in my old apartment that I lived in. It was just like facing my desk. And so as long as he could see me, because he was very attached to me, he would just run. Yeah, it was great. It was probably one of the best things I ever bought him, because it was the only way I could tire him out. So he would have loved that. Ace, no. Ace is like, would look at me and like, absolutely not.
I used to live with a husky Irish wolfhound, and she was Like, she one is the skinniest little monster. She's like 35 pounds of all hair and bone. And she runs like 15 miles, 8-minute miles, like
Oh
with
my
my older mate
gosh.
all the time. Like, she's crazy. So I'm sorry, Ace.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's Ace is not made for this life, but it's fine. Everyone, he brings his own unique value to me, so that's fine. We'll keep him around.
Let's go back to just your performances at the most recent Olympics. I do want to talk about it's definitely something that happened. You were involved in a crash at the finish line, but you still finished. Did I see a time?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish they didn't give me a time.
Because I was like, oh, I bet he got a DNF. Like, I just want to double check, like, what happens. And I was like, wait, there's a time there. So is that normal for them to include a time in a crash? Or
I didn't think. I mean, so technically, I did finish. So it's a really great race. If anyone wants to watch, it's the men's 5,000 meter. Was it the final? Yeah, I think it was the final.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was because that's how I got there. So yeah, it was the men's 5,000 meter final, T54, and it was a pretty tactical race throughout most of it. And the last, I think I want to say 800 or so, we started to pick our speed up. Everyone was jostling around for position, things like that. We're going probably around 20 miles an hour to sort of set the scene. I have my own philosophy and sort of training and race tactic is I never give up lane one. I never want to give up lane one. And so usually once you start that last like 300 meters or so on the track, everyone starts to go wide for some reason because you're trying to accelerate around people. You don't want to get boxed in. But a lot of times what happens is they leave lane one wide open. And so I was like super excited. I saw it happening. I knew what they were all doing. And I was like, this is my chance. I'm just going to slide right up, see what happens. Probably, I'm not even kidding, like not even 20 meters before the finish line, I heard an athlete in front of me who was in between 1 and 2. I sort of just heard what sounded like him hitting the bar on the side of the track. And I was like, uh-oh. And then I kind of looked up and I saw he had tried to adjust, and I really had hoped that he just flipped over. That would have been great. But instead he flipped back onto the track and I had nowhere to go. And so I just I tried to swerve to kind of I didn't want to just directly run him over. And I knew I was going to crash. There was no way that I was not going to come out of my chair at some point. And so anyway, I tried to turn to avoid as much damage as I could. I slid on my side. There's an awful picture of my face just face planted into the track that my buddies now love sending around as a joke. It's now one of their contact photos. Yeah, it's one of their contact photos now. And of course, so I was right at the line, and I was I got up. I was a little sore. I was fine, and everyone else had finished, and my teammate Daniel had just won a gold medal as well. So that was really exciting. But I'm like, what? I'm cursing. I'm very annoyed because it was going to be a good finish for me, and I just sort of slowly got in my chair. They're asking me if I needed help. They were going to bring a stretcher, and I was like, "Oh, absolutely not! This is on television." There's the one time that people are in the stadium watching this, and there's people watching this at home. I'm like, I don't need to be carted off on a stretcher. So I got in my chair, and I literally just kind of gradually moved my front wheel forward, which then is how I got a finish time. They disqualified. The other guy didn't finish. The guy that caused the crash, he did not finish. He just kind of went off to the side of the track. So he got a DNF. That took about 2.5 minutes for me to do to get back to my chair and all this stuff. So they gave me a finishing time. And now I'm in next year, and when everyone looks at the results, they're going to not know that I was in a crash. They're going to think I was 2.5 minutes behind everyone. I want to be like, who can I write to just put it as a DNF, please?
Yeah. But
everyone's gonna think, everyone's gonna think I got dropped in this race, and in reality, only some of us are ever going to remember that it was because it was a crash, not that I was too slow and got dropped.
It's forever immortalized.
Yeah, I was like, it's the worst. Like, honestly, I was, oh God, so bad.
I mean, I kind of have always wondered though, like, do you practice crashing or anything? Do you learn? Do you talk about it?
You learn more just good race technique and race how to maneuver and handle your chair. So like chair skills basically. Okay. So that when people do things that are stupid, because there are a lot of dumb wheelchair racers in the world that don't have the experience of working with a group every day, and so they're all over the place. They don't look before they do things. They just kind of make moves. When you have a group, we're always kind of on alert. We practice we're comfortable in a draft. We're comfortable in a group of people making moves, things like that. And also, if you cause a crash with our team, you'll just be ridiculed. So there's also that added pressure as well. So we just have we practice chair skills, but no, we wouldn't actually practice sort of the crash itself because the chairs are pretty fragile. And so the alignment in my chair actually got really messed up from that. I was able to, get it fixed. Fortunately, my teammate, Aaron, is incredible at chair stuff. I'm not. I'm awful at it. So he came through the next day, and I credit him too with getting my chair ready so that I could then win a medal in the 400. So had he not done that, I don't think my chair would have rolled as well, and I might not have won a medal. So he's as deserving as for praise for that, because otherwise, that wouldn't have happened. So the chairs are fragile, and the littlest thing can mess a lot of it up.
Do you ever travel with a spare chair, or is that like just too cumbersome?
I don't. We box it. We have a travel case for it that does a pretty good job of protecting it.
Okay.
My teammate Daniel did go to Paris with 2 racing chairs. I brought some parts and things. So if there's the front fork, I brought a spare steering cylinder, a couple other pieces that if I were to crash and something were to snap or break, I could probably fix it. But I was like, if the aluminum in my chair snaps or something, and you can't fix it, that's fine. I just need to be done. I'm not bringing another chair. We're just, it's too much. I already had enough other things that I was like, I don't have the ability to do this. But some people do. I don't. I'll just bring parts and stuff and then try and get it fixed.
I think I've heard that that your chair has gotten lost in travel before.
Yes, my day chair actually, which is even worse than my racing chair. If my racing chair gets lost, I'm nervous. I'm like, oh, what's happening to it? But my day chair has gotten lost in the Miami airport one time, and it took over a day for me to get my wheelchair back. So that was a whole fun adventure. But that's traveling with either a wheelchair or any kind of sports equipment is always a terrifying experience, especially your day chair more than anything, because if that gets damaged, that's not easy to replace, nor are you able to just exist as a human being. So that's another thing that I'm, very keen on in terms of trying to make airlines more accessible for disabled people as well. Because I've been very lucky, but there are people that I know that haven't. And, you break a day chair, and it'd be like me telling you, if you get on this plane, there's a 50% chance that your leg might be broken. It's like, would you get on that plane? And that's what
sounds like Spirit Airlines.
Yeah. And so that's sort of the gamble that most wheelchair users face every time they fly. That there's a chance that their wheelchair just might get broken or get lost. And then the airline's like, oops, sorry for the inconvenience. Like, it's more than an inconvenience.
Yeah.
But yeah. So but I've been lucky that fortunately it's only happened to me a couple times. Well, once with my day chair, and then my racing chair, I'm like, it's in a case and it's just finding it at some point.
you don't think someone would pick up your racing chair by accident, doesn't look like their own luggage.
No, but interestingly enough, a couple weeks ago when we were traveling somewhere back from trials, my other teammate, Aaron, we were flying and they brought up our wheelchairs to the plane so we could get into them. But someone else who had a wheelchair, like they needed a wheelchair, like the wheelchair service, they just saw his chair there. They sat in it and took it to baggage claim.
What?
And we were looking, we actually thought that the airline lost his chair. And he's like, he has an air tag, and he's like, no, it says it's here. And then my other teammate, Susanna, was down at baggage claim, and she looked, and she's like, oh, that's a really, like, we all have nice wheelchairs. And so most people, generally have like big, bulky ones. So it's a nice wheelchair. And so she looked, and she's like, man, that's a nice wheelchair. And she's looking at it, she's like, that looks like Aaron's chair. And he actually has wooden, like push rims. And she was like, oh, and they also have wooden push rims like Aaron. And then she realized, she was like, wait, that's Aaron's wheelchair. So she had to like go up to this random man and was like, I think that's someone else's chair. And the guy like looked at her and he was like, no, I need a wheelchair. And she was like, no, that's my friend's wheelchair. So
that's so awkward.
Yeah, it was so awkward.
That's so awesome though.
Out there, yeah, he thought that the wheelchair out there was just for him. So yeah, interesting. We have there's so many interesting stories.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So now that you're a two-time Olympian or two-time Paralympian medalist, do you just wear your medals everywhere then?
No, I actually don't. They've been put away. I've shown them to some people. I don't go around asking people, like, do you want to see my medals? That feels weird to me. If you ask,
I honestly would.
If someone asks, I'll say yeah, I'll show you. But I don't no. I put them in a little bag that I had, and they've stayed in there. I haven't figured out where I'm going to put them in my house yet, but yeah, I got to figure that out. But I don't know. I've been busy unpacking. That's a later problem. They might they might just go in a drawer. To be perfectly honest, they might just go in a drawer. And if requested, I would bring them out. But otherwise, let's go in the drawer.
So how was it when you crossed the finish lines though of those two races? Did you know immediately, or did you take a beat and then kind of let it wash through you, or how does that mentally hit you?
Well, so the 400 was the medal that I won first, and I got to about the last 50 meters or so, and I was in lane 6, and there was someone who I knew. One of the guy that won gold was in 4, and a guy who I was chasing who got silver was in 7. And I knew that I needed to. I like chasing people. I don't like. If I was on the inside, I was like, oh man, I have to chase people. I don't like that. I don't like. Yeah. Or what's the other? Yeah. That's what I like. So I like chasing someone, and I knew that basically, as long as I got to that final, I came out of the turn with the last 100, and if no one was on my inside, I was going to feel pretty confident. So I knew that I just had to try and hold those people off on my inside. And so for me, when I got to the last 50 meters, I hadn't seen anyone, and I was like, if I haven't seen anyone yet, it would take a lot for them to be able to close that gap and then get me. I wasn't fitting up and celebrating, but I knew I kind of had this moment in my head. I was like, oh my God, I think I just did it. So, and then when I crossed the line, I knew that I had done it. There was no one in my set. So I knew right away that I just won a bronze medal. And so I was really excited. It was no longer that waiting that I've always done where I've kind of had to look up and wonder, oh, it's just I lost by 100th of a second. It was, I just did it. So I was really excited. So I knew right away, which was awesome. And then in the 800, sort of similarly, we had dropped the French athlete right after the French crowd roared. We had dropped him, and so then it was a 3-person race, and I knew that the other guys were going to be close, but I knew if they weren't there with us, if we had dropped them, the rest of them weren't going to be able to get back up. So at that point, when it was about 250 left and there was only the three of us, I knew that at that point we were all like, I was going to win a medal. It was just kind of what medal I was going to get. And it was a tight race for silver. I ended up with bronze, which I'm very happy with. So, I'm of the mentality, like, to me, winning a medal is the goal. And I was so excited to be able to do that. And in the race that is my favorite race, that I was so happy. So yeah, I kind of knew, like, the races went as well as they did, so I knew that it was happening. So I was confident, but there was also a lot of nerves before then. So if you saw me before the race, I was a nervous wreck. But once the race started, and then once sort of the strategy that I came up with my coach kind of played out, I was pretty confident.
Did you get to see like the cane that they like would strike the ground with? Because that looked really cool. Yeah,
so I saw that only at the marathon, because that was
okay. Yeah,
they start the events off with that, and I forget what it's called. I saw it somewhere and I don't remember it right now. But yeah, that's like the official thing that they get other, former Olympians or Paralympians that are like, or famous people, and it's sort of this honorary. Yeah, like it's this honorary moment where you get to be the one to start those days' events. And so, yeah, I got to see it. It was pretty cool. I was like, this guy's just walking around with a stick, and just like, they have like the ceremonial music in the background, and he's just like trying to make it align with that. And it was cool.
Yeah, I believe that, I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that it like comes from like French theater or something like that. I don't know, something French, right? I don't know.
Sure.
So I'm sure someone will correct me, and I would appreciate that. I think, Gretchen, do you want to ask him the question that we ask everyone?
Do you prefer for training in the morning or in the evening?
Morning. I am 100% a morning person. I need to get the work, I need to get my day started that way. Otherwise, like, if my day gets going, I have no motivation. And I'm so lucky that I have a group here as well, because that also peer pressures me to like work out as well. That motivation is there. But morning. If we have a later practice for whatever reason, if something happens and it's a later practice, my day is just like done. Even if it's like 9 a.m., I'm like, no. Or even so in the winter, when we do our indoor training, we only have a certain number of like indoor rollers, and we'll split up in groups. And I've told my coach, like, I have to be at the group that goes at 6:30, because if I get there at 8 and I see people finish their workout, I'm going to just mentally be like, oh, they're already done and I still have to go. Like, I just need to be, I don't care if I have to get up, I'll get up, that's fine. But I gotta get it done. And then if I have to do something in the afternoon, that's fine. But my day has to start with that. Otherwise, the rest is just, it's a wash.
Well, I can relate to that 100%. Elaine, not so much.
No, I'm like someone who goes out at like 10 or 11 at night, in St. Louis, which is super safe.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's so safe. No, I'm in bed by then. We're in bed getting ready to wake up at 5 a.m. to go get your workout in.
Yep.
Well, then I'll go meet Gretchen at 6 a.m. for a workout. So, yeah.
So no sleep. Yeah, no sleep then.
Yeah, no sleep, no sleep. It's okay.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, morning all the way. Team morning.
Yay.
Well, I could continue this forever, but I think we're gonna call it quits so someone can get sleep here. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on all of your accomplishments.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a happy birthday and enjoy Europe.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Happy Pace. Like this episode and channel if you found your happy pace while listening. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can find us on social media at happy_pace_podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Email us happypace@houseofmachka.com if you have any questions, comments, and ideas for guests. This is a House of Machka production. Our music is written, performed, and recorded by Grant Underhill, Mike Plasmeier, and Jake Laconte. Our graphic designer is Rachel Slingluff. Our marketing manager is Gretchen Brune. This episode was recorded and edited by Elaine Sims.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Hey there, how you doing, man? Morning, how you doing? You can't wait up and say that. Morning. What's up, Alex? How you doing, man?
Hey, look, that ends the episode.